That's good stuff.
Okay.
Okay, well, welcome to the second episode of our podcast, Laughing to Death, Moments in Mortality with two death doulas, which are clearly me, Taylor Bell, and my co-host.
Lacy Bynack.
And this round, we're actually going to be more in the format I think we foresee for this podcast, which is we used to do these reels on social media called Moments of Mortality, where we would just talk about, we would alternate, and we would talk about just something that's come up for us in real life around living, dying, and death. And what I'm so excited about, and I think you are as well, is that when we did the reels, it was just us on our own talking about something for a minute or two, and that was that. And now we get to bring something to the table and talk about it together. And it's fun too, because like today I'm bringing something to the table and you don't really know fully what we'll be talking about. So it's a very inspired conversation, which is exciting.
Yes.
And so I'm going to take the lead today. Shall I just dive right in?
You shall.
Okay. So let me lay a little bit of the groundwork of how I got to this. A few weeks ago, I had some health stuff. It wasn't anything serious, but I let my mind wander into what if something was going on and it was, I only have a year or two to live. Like what would I do first? And my mind instantly went into logistics of like, okay, do I stay in my house and die here? Or do I sell my house? And am I keeping my jobs or am I traveling? And I just went into this kind of tailspin. And then my mind thought, well, no, you'll just know what to do when it's time. And that may be true, but that felt like an absolute, that didn't feel satisfying. It felt like a cop out to just say that. And so I just kept mulling it over.
Question.
Yeah.
When you're saying that, when you're explaining how your mind was working, do you almost feel like that was a little part of you sitting on your shoulder, like a little, not an angel or a devil, but that's sort of the cartoon version that you think of? Like, who was that? What was that voice? Who was that voice?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, like what was it that chimed in and just said, you'll know? And and actually I told another friend about this experience, and they were very like, right on. That was like your higher self.
Okay. Could
saying,
be.
Which was interesting because I was more like, get out of here. Like, I want a plan.
What a nuisance.
Yeah, but and again, could totally be true because also let's remember, I have a death plan. So do you, right? So it's not like this is my first time considering these things.
Sure.
So that might have been part of it too. Like you'll know what to do, but I just wasn't in the moment. That didn't feel satisfying. I wanted to kind of dig in deeper, and so I kept thinking about it over a few days, and then I remembered when we did Year of the Death Plan last year, which was when we invited everybody to join in if they wanted we walked people through making a death plan. And one of the questions we posed was, what do you value? And so I started thinking about that because we asked the question to help people make decisions and plans in thinking of end of life. And what got me is the wording of that question, what do you value, now sounds almost aspirational to me. Like I value family and peace, and okay, well, but am I living that? Is that my life? Is that a lived value? And that got me to that question of like, I think it really is asking, what are my lived values? How do I live my life? And that took me on this really fun, like, meditation on, okay, how do I live my life? And can I extract my values from looking at how I live? And that was a totally different brain exercise than just saying, what do you value?
Can I interject something?
Yeah.
This is reminding me of one time, I think it was a sermon that I heard. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you want to know what your values are, this was a long time ago, as you're about to find out. Um, Look at your checkbook and your daily planner, your calendar. Like, how are you spending your time and how are you spending your money? And that will tell you almost immediately what your values are.
I love that. The checkbook part, especially because that, I mean, it's just true, and it takes it again out of this aspirational thing and more into like, what have you woven into your life
Mm-hmm.
as a priority? Yeah, and so that's just, and so I started. I have a list now on my phone of my values, and it's like a ever expanding, living thing. But because it, when you say, or for me, when I ask myself, what do I value? I mean, it's so big too. So to get
Yeah.
something tangible, like look at your planner, look at your checkbook. For me, I just started with, okay, when I wake up, what's the next thing I do? What's the next thing I do? And basically took myself through my day,
Mhm.
and I could see where my values were showing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And I never thought about that before. It is such a big idea, your values. And when I knew that we were going to do a podcast about values, I had always wanted to take one of those find your core values. I love a quiz, like, but I looked up taking a quiz on core values. Well, it ended up just giving me an Enneagram. And I think that's kind of funny because it's more your personality. Like, is that your personality or is that your
mm,
values? Like I was telling you, the artistics, surrounding yourself with aesthetics that make you feel calm and peaceful and, surrounded by beauty and stuff. And I thought, well, that's important to me, but I don't really do that anymore.
it's like, well, that sounds very nice, but is that something you actually, is it a value or is it a preference?
Yes, thank you. That was kind of where I was going with that.
Because the original question I was asking myself is, if I found out I had a year to live, what would I do? And now that I have this list of what I see as true lived values, that guides me. That's the whole point. And even better still, it doesn't like, I'm not going to die in a year, I don't think, but this list could still guide me in making bigger decisions, whether it's about relationships or career stuff or where I live. Well, when we ask ourselves these big life changing questions, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Where do I start? I think this is a big help, is to, and I think the key is to actually put pen to paper. What are your values?
Yeah, I was just listening to yesterday. I've gotten back onto the Handsome podcast.
Oh, nice.
She was saying she wrote out everything she wanted in a partner. I forget who it was. And a month later, met her person.
Yeah, it was
And
Tig, and she meant Allison.
yes, and then she looked back at that list and she was like, holy shit, it's like a description down to the T. And there is something so powerful about putting pen to paper. And the other thing that you said that brought something up for me is we talk a lot about your death plan helping you realize your values, and your values help you to die well. But
Mhm,
there is an element too of, we talk a lot about this isn't just about death, it's about living and finding these values and writing them down for right now to help us
mhm.
live better right now.
Totally. And that's the thing too, is that even if you say, oh, I really value nature and I am never in it, well,
Mm.
that might change what you do on your weekends or even where you live. I mean, who knows?
I mean,
When
that
you're
has been a factor for us moving to Hawaii.
mhm,
We have at the end of our road, 2 miles away, we can be on a trail in like 5 minutes. We can be on a trail in the middle of the rainforest that leads you to a pristine, secluded beach on the edge of the world. I mean, it's just crazy. Like,
mhm,
but we kind of created this lifestyle because that was such a big value. And I had so many people say, this is so inspiring that you're doing this. Like, you're making this big of a change to align with what you want in life. And yeah, nature was a big catalyst in that. I don't know that I realized how much of that decision to move was about values. I mean, we wanted a slower pace of life. We wanted to be, we left. The big thing that we left that's so hard about living here is we left our community of friends and family, but we also are now in a place where it's easy to find um, really open-hearted, community-oriented people, and so we're
Mm,
building this community here. So anyway, that is really all about values, and I don't know that I framed it that way until
interesting.
now.
Well, we're done here. Well, and I also wanted to say, this friend was saying how what she had heard in regard to values is if you can't think of what you value or not very many things that you value, think about what pisses you off.
Ooh,
And then you'll see a value that's being challenged or not seen or diminished or
yeah, that's
something. And I, oh,
great.
that's interesting. What you think some of your lived values are. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already know the answer. I'm sure I could dig deeper with more time, but
Yeah,
experiences.
that's on my list.
Yeah, I don't want stuff. I think you and
Hmm.
I both are pretty unclingy when it comes to
Hmm.
stuff. If you look at both of our closets, they're very
Hmm.
sparse. And I love that. That feels like freedom to me in a way, but experiencing things and also, especially, I love this about having kids, like introducing them to experiences in the world and travel. That's definitely what I've spent my money on over the years,
Hmm.
for sure. So if we're using that as informative,
Yeah.
that
Yes,
really helps. I'm sure that I'll have more come to me, but those are the first two that come up. What about you? You've been writing things down.
I have
And did any of them surprise you?
some. The first one, our interconnectedness,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just prattle off experiences, frugality, not being confined by gender, sex, or age, creating, nature, one on one time, resourcefulness, allowing my body to age, inclusion, live music, awareness, functionality, and adaptability.
Those are great. And I can see all those in you. Like I can see all of
Uh,
those things in the way that you live your life
I'm
too.
glad you're not just sitting there like, these are your
Oh,
lived
interesting you
values.
think that.
It just seems that
I've
you
got a
think
few to
that.
add to that list.
But I mean, yeah, that's the thing about it that I like about this exercise is it's never ending. And it's not like all of this needs to be happening all the time.
Hmm.
Much like what you were saying earlier, where it's like, okay, you and your family value your community that was here in Texas, but you were willing to, for the time being, switch and put your value on travel and experience and nature and like being with the land more and all. I mean, it was a good trade-off, for a while. And it's not like you lost your community, you're just not in
Hmm.
close proximity physically. So I think that's really fun. It's like it keeps it very inspired, where it's like, oh, it's our values are a living thing that we live, and that just
Yes,
changes
and
with us.
you and I have talked about this a lot. We value, or we used to, maybe I should say, both really value balance and always trying to find balance and da 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 da.
Mm,
And then as years went by, and we've talked about this multiple times, that doesn't mean that it's balanced all the time. You know, balance
right.
can be over the long term. And what's the word that you use? Equanimity.
Well, here I've got balance is dynamic.
Dynamic. Yes. Tell the listeners what you mean by that, because you have said that a few times, and it makes sense, but I don't know that just saying it is really gets
Sure.
it across.
true balance is like, well, kind of like when we allude to spinning plates, where it's just like it's this thing that is we're keeping these things moving, and in balancing all these things, there's kind of a center point, but it's not still,
Mm.
right? Because we're just in these different areas of our life, kind of giving different attention. They're only able to balance because they're doing all this dynamic motion.
That's good. Yeah, and because in my 20s, I was obsessed with the idea of balance, and it was like it had to be each day was balance and the work life balance and and it
Mhm.
was like, well, there's that can be a goal, I guess, but also there's a time for everything, there's a
Mhm.
season for everything. And when you almost have to take the broader view to see that there is balance. It's just not perfection.
And I think that's something too, as we get older, we get so task oriented, even things we love that were once disciplines we like, oh, I very purposefully am putting this in my life, become just a task. And then it just loses all its heart. And so I think that's the thing too, where when we look at fresh perspective, I think this is why the value thing has been so eye opening for me. Cause like, honestly, when we talk about like what do you value? I'm a little eye rolly. I'm a little like,
Yeah, it is a bit
okay.
much.
Yeah, because it just sounds so, I don't know.
Live,
But
love,
then it
love.
just, yes, yes, it kind of goes there. And so it's like, but just finding a new way to get in there, to like seeing it differently, like it just changes things. And then it helps, like, how am I going to structure my days right now? And that might look totally different in 6 months. And
Yeah,
that's
and
fine.
decision fatigue is real.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
I'm remodeling a kitchen right now, and it is like there. Do you know how many different kinds of hardware there are for door cabinets?
I do. I do. A lot.
A lot. A
Mhm.
silly example, but there's just so many decisions that we make in a day, and without that clarity, those
Mhm.
decisions can be very heavy,
I
even little
agree.
ones. So
Okay, well, this has been fun as always.
it has been fun. Till next
Okay.
time.